All right, what's up, everybody? This is Thomas Bahamas, and you're here for another episode of Solana Weekly. Today, I'm very excited for our guest. We've got Alex on, who is the CEO of Nansen, and they're basically the gold standard for crypto analytics. So I'm excited to hear all about it. I want to hear his story, where it came from, and very excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you, Thomas. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So how's everything going these days? How are you enjoying the market these days?
Yeah, it's pretty fun actually. I mean, it's Tuesday morning my time, and the week has started very strong actually. I was watching the Robinhood announcements yesterday, and I saw the X stocks announcement, and there's a lot of stuff happening now that is very exciting. I've been talking about tokenized equity actually for a while, and so I'm happy to see that start to become a real thing.
Yeah. I actually bought a tokenized version of Tesla today. Like just to do it, just to see what it was like, and it's just like swapping from one token to the other. I mean, we've been talking about this for years, so it's pretty exciting that it's actually happening right now, right?
Totally. Yeah, I'm actually super bullish on it, especially like the private equity announcement also that they had with OpenAI and SpaceX. I thought was
Yeah,
really interesting. So I feel like you could argue, I guess we'll get into that in a little bit, but you could sort of argue that crypto up to now has been kind of a toy world or a sandbox era. And then we're kind of moving into like the real assets now going forward, which I think is super exciting.
yeah. It's almost like both the markets are kind of combining now, right? Like we've got the crypto market, we've got the
Mm,
TradFi market, and they're like slowly melding together, right? Like I feel like there's
yes.
so many advantages to having a tokenized version of a stock where you actually own it, right? Like you can trade it at any time of the day. You can trade a tiny portion of you want if you want. You don't have to use
Yeah.
like Robinhood or any of those other centralized exchanges. It's just exciting.
Yeah, and you could collateralize it and you can sort of include it in all sorts of interesting financial applications. So, yeah, I think it just makes a ton of sense. And I'm super excited to see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've been in crypto for a while. So Nansen started, it was in 2019 that you guys got started?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
So you've seen the markets. I mean, I mean, that's a cycle or two. Like, what was your expectation going into this cycle? Like, I feel like nothing
Mm.
ever plays how you think it would, right?
Yeah, I mean, I joined crypto in 2017. I had sort of heard about Bitcoin, sort of debated it 2013. I think was the first time I seriously looked at it.
Yeah.
But I actually only joined crypto as an investor in 2017. And then I very quickly fell down the rabbit hole, got very excited about Ethereum,
Hmm.
and moved to Hong Kong from Barcelona. And essentially, like you said, late 2019, we started building the company, and the first lines of code were written for Nansen. And it is true that we've been through a couple of cycles, and I always get the question like, will we have more cycles, or are we in like the super cycle now?
Yeah.
Um, but I think just human nature sort of dictates that you will have euphoria and panic
Yeah.
interchange. So I think this specific cycle is kind of interesting because it has sort of multiple different forces at play. There's obviously a very complex macro backdrop with, wars around the world and obviously the debt in the US and lots of stuff happening across the board. But then you like right now, I feel like there's some degree of pessimism around altcoins, if we can call it that.
Yeah.
I don't really like that term that much, but basically anything that is not Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of positivity around Bitcoin specifically,
Yeah.
right, where institutional buyers and so on. So it's hard to kind of characterize this current cycle. Actually, it's feels like it's a mix of multiple forces going on at once.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting cycle. So I was buying Bitcoin around 2016, 2017, but I wasn't really like that involved in it. I'd use it to on ramp onto poker sites, right? So I wasn't like that involved in it until one day I realized like, hey, I could make more money by just not selling this, but then by playing poker. So that's
Yeah.
what got me hooked. But I mean, especially this year has been tough, right? So we started out this year with a
Mm.
bang, right? Like the end of last year, it was like, all right, we got Trump in as a president. He launched a meme coin. Solana went to all time highs. It was like everything was like really gearing up to go crazy. We had the ETF for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is already like being purchased a lot. And especially like for the Solana side, it like 2025 has been a relatively bad year price wise for Solana. It's
Yeah,
like Bitcoin,
yeah,
Bitcoin has done great. Like hype has done great. I'd say like 2025, the
yes,
story is probably Bitcoin and hype, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah. That's a good way to summarize it. Actually, I mean, I've been following what I like to refer to as the chain wars for a while now, like
yeah. Oh
looking
yeah.
at, for example, on-chain metrics for different chains. And
Yeah.
I think, if I go back to when I started getting active in crypto in 2017, I was a bit of an ETH maximalist. I thought Ethereum is the only chain that's ever going to matter. And I've basically been proven wrong. I think Solana is probably the first chain to really solidly prove me and other ETH maxis wrong, because it basically flipped Ethereum on a bunch of on-chain metrics, right? Whether it's number of addresses, number of transactions, but even more like hard to compete on metrics like revenues generated
Yeah.
from fees on the network. And so, but to your point, it hasn't been a great year for Solana so far. We're now
Yeah.
exactly half a year into 6 months into the year. And I would say if I look at the on-chain metrics, sole revenues or basically, fees generated from the network peaked in January, right? And then it's kind of been a slow grind since then. It's picked up a little bit since, call it April. But definitely it hasn't managed to get back to the heights where it was in like late 2024 or even early 2025. So, and then to your point, Hyperliquid has been crushing it. And it's a little
Yeah.
bit, apples and oranges, if you think about how to characterize revenues from Hyperliquid, because it's kind of both a chain and an exchange, which means it benefits from the fact that the more like dollar denoted value you transact, the more revenues you generate. Whereas with a blockchain like Solana or Ethereum, it actually doesn't matter how much value you're transacting. Like one transaction costs the same, right? So yeah, it's been a great year for Hyperliquid for sure. It's not been so great for Solana overall, but it's really open right now. It's an open
Yeah.
field with regards to which chain is going to win, the way I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kept talking about like how a lot of the regulations are no longer there, right? Like a lot of the companies are almost like it's like they're free to build again in the US, where it's been a gray area for the last few years, where a lot of times their bank accounts are getting closed, or a lot of times, they're moving off seas to avoid, being prosecuted. So I feel like a lot of the stuff that was in the way is no longer in the way, but it's just not happening. So I kind of feel like that's shifting now. We're seeing ETFs. I think I read that Wednesday there might be a staking ETF going live for Solana.
Mm.
So we
Yeah,
got
I think
that.
that's
We
right.
got
I think it's, yeah, what was the name of it again? But
Osprey, I want to say,
maybe it's Osprey. I feel like there was another one as well.
and there might be another one.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense, right? It's actually a pretty compelling product, right? If you
Yeah,
can get exposure to one of the top layer ones and also get healthy staking yields from that, like that's a pretty compelling proposition, I think.
yeah. So my obviously this is a Solana Weekly podcast, so we're always we have too much hopium, and the way that I think is we're going to catch up on the second half of 2025. But I feel like all assets are just going to go up like crazy pretty soon. I don't even think we need to really have chain wars. It's like which one is going to go up more is kind of the way that it seems right now.
I mean, I think Solana is super well positioned for this new meta of on-chain equities. I think
Oh, it was its goal
to
from the
to do
beginning,
that.
right? That was
Yeah,
Nasdaq on chain was the goal when
exactly.
Anatoly built it, right?
Totally. So I think, like I said earlier, I mean, think of meme coins as like the test net almost, or like the sandbox or the toy world,
Yeah,
right? That's where you like harden the infrastructure and you get the trading products and you get like all this crazy speculation. And to be fair, over the years, Solana has faced some issues, which, they've overcome piece by piece. But if you didn't have all the meme coins, all the craziness, you wouldn't have like, faced those bottlenecks, which we've now overcome, right? So I think it's been great practice for like the real leagues, which is now I think tokenized equities and like other forms of financial assets. And so I personally think Solana is super well positioned to have tons of trading activity with these new assets, right? Or actually they're old assets that are like new in a blockchain context. So I'm pretty bullish in that sense. I think it's super well positioned to do extremely well in that meta.
I like that stocks are coming on chain. There's more like Bitcoin, wrap Bitcoin that's coming on to Solana too. I feel like one of the issues that Solana always had was it never really had a good store of value, right? Like there's the Sol coin, but it was also like really well integrated with USDC from the beginning, right? I feel like more so, back in 2017, there was no stable coins, right? You would trade in and out of Bitcoin was the way that you do. But on Solana, it's USDC is so integrated into everything that you do. It's like you trade with dollars. So I'm excited to see more and better stores of value coming on chain, like stocks, better forms of wrap Bitcoin. I feel like a lot more of that. And even RWAs are kind of picking up steam on Solana too. So I feel like a lot of those are just going to keep their money on chain more. And I think people are getting more comfortable using the chain because, it's the most used chain, right?
Yeah, totally. And like I said, a lot of the infrastructure and the products and protocols that have been built can be used just the same with all these real world assets. And as long as they use the same standards, right, for tokens and NFTs and so on. So that's pretty bullish. It would be great if you could just collateralize your Apple stock or Tesla stock and just borrow money against it when you want to. And that's kind of literally what the world's wealthiest people do, but you're kind of democratizing those types of financial transactions for even someone who just holds like $100 in their Phantom wallet or, whatever it is.
Yeah, the ultimate end goal of crypto is not just to play with crypto. It's like, all right, let's do things where you can't actually do, you're not actually like, I guess you can kind of do what they're trying to do, like with stocks, like bringing more utility to other assets that you wouldn't necessarily find. So, right. So it's almost like unlocking utility in assets that you wouldn't normally be able to do anything like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I would argue that things like ICOs and meme coins have become popular because retail investors want to have access to moonshot early investment opportunities, which historically have been kind of reserved for VCs and private equity exclusively. But the irony is that regulations have kind of driven retail investors to meme coins and ICOs, which are, without getting too judgmental, probably lower quality investment opportunities overall in aggregate. I think statistically you can argue that, at least in aggregate. There are exceptions, of course. And so as we kind of clean up all this stuff and we get more favorable regulations for blockchains, I think a healthy outcome would actually be that retail investors can access, for example, private equity or, private equity in quotes, because arguably it becomes public equities if you can access them early on. But, the point is that there's a lot of high quality companies that are relatively early stage that you just can't invest in as a retail investor. And so you're kind of left with meme coins and like ICOs or maybe NFTs as, the stuff that you can invest in, which very often by definition has like no value. And by design, right? Because you want to avoid that they become classified as securities. So it's very ironic in some ways, right? That retail investors end up having to buy these quote unquote valueless assets, or like, I don't know if we can even call them assets, like valueless tokens, when it probably would be better for everyone if they could invest in stuff that actually has some value, right? But that's kind of the Gary Gensler catch-22 that we're stuck with.
I think it's kind of a shame for, especially a lot of like the top protocols that are even in crypto, like they're incredibly successful businesses. If they actually had equity in the company that they were able to issue out, like these would be multi-billion-dollar companies, but instead they just have a token on the side that kind of sits there and it's kind of a meme of a coin, right? There's no direct value. Maybe they buy some back, or like maybe they dip their toes into giving it more value, but they really can't, and they have to avoid directly saying like, hey, this is our coin, you're buying our equity, So I think that's going to be something that opens up, or at least I hope to see that.
I think also the kind of insidious thing here is that a lot of retail investors don't fully understand that if a company has a token, you don't have the same rights as someone who is a shareholder. So you kind of speculate on, think of like FTT or arguably BNB, although I think BNB has actually evolved into something more interesting over the years. But there's a bunch of projects that have these kind of pseudo securities, like pseudo equity tokens, which if you take, I think, a realistic view, these are potentially misleading. It would be much better if you could actually align incentives fully and just let people invest in the actual business, right? Like if we had like, Nansen equity in Jupiter, where you have certain rights, whether it's like dividends or voting rights or whatever, or liquidation rights, right? I think that would be great. Like that's kind of the world I want to create, actually, and help or at least contribute to creating, that retail investors can actually own pieces of something that's valuable and not just kind of speculative tokens.
Yeah, and I think we want to see that in general, because we want people to stick around. Like one of the worst things of the meme coin narrative was people came, they lost money, and then they left, right? Like, I don't think that's the case. Like, I think that's overblown. Like, if a coin goes up 1,000x and you just hold it and it goes to zero, like, why did you do that? Why didn't you just sell a little bit? Like, I don't know. Like, that I think that's a little overblown. But in general, a lot of those coins go down to zero, right? Like, there's no intrinsic value to them.
And the thing is, like, someone will be left with the bag, right? So it's like, even if you do sell it, like, someone is losing, because these things are mostly zero-sum games, right? There's no like actual value accrual mechanism. And that's kind of by design, because of the reason we said earlier, like you want to make sure that they're not classified as securities and stuff like that. But with stocks, you have businesses that actually create things that are valuable and that generate revenues that ultimately probably translate to profits. Shareholders then can enjoy the upside of those profits and so on. So there's kind of like a positive sum element to stocks, right? In the best case scenario, whereas some of these other things are actually zeros. And ultimately, if you do look at it, most people lose money, and the entities that make the most money are like the casinos, right? Like the trading products. And this is no secret. If you look at whether it's like Radium, or you look at Pump.fun, or you look at Photon, a lot of these trading products generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenues. And if you accept that these are like zero-sum games and that money is being extracted from trading, then actually it's like a negative sum game for the participants, right? I'm not saying this is not like a moral judgment. It's just kind of economics, right? And you can absolutely make money doing it, for sure. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. It's a form of entertainment and all that stuff. But I do think it's worth distinguishing between that and, say, something that is fundamentally more of a positive sum game, which is like funding companies that build something of value in the world, that create revenues and all that stuff. Anyway, I don't want to become too like, pedantic or like moralistic about this stuff. But I do think like the thing that excites me about crypto is to actually build the future of finance. And I think, Solana is awesome because it has managed to kind of benefit from a lot of the speculation, which I don't think is a negative thing. I think it is kind of like an investment into the infrastructure and the products. And then it sort of graduates or matures into something where you can have these like positive sum assets be traded. And hey, now you've created like fantastic infrastructure for the future of finance. So I suppose it's kind of, it's almost like a clever scheme. Like if this is like, intelligent design, like God looking down, it's actually a very clever way to finance the future of finance. It's like we're letting people go crazy with all these speculative assets that hardens the infrastructure and all the products. And then now you've managed to fund this like incredible infrastructure and these incredible products. So it's actually like a pretty clever scheme if someone has designed it top down, in that sense. I'm not sure. I think it's more of an emergent thing, but I do think it's kind of a fun thing to think about.
What a story to tell if it actually is the future of finance. It's like, well, it kind of started out, it didn't work that well. There used to be a lot of picks that people would pay a lot of money for. They were NFTs. Then it moved on to meme coins. It broke it a few more times. And then now it works really well because of that. It's a funny way to look at it.
Yeah, I think that is literally how the history of crypto will be written. Like I think in 2045, there will be, books, or maybe they're not even books at that point. They're like, just AI telling us the story. I don't know. But they will tell the story like that. I think there's going to be that toy world era in the beginning that was crazy and speculative. And then it led to the creation of the world's best infrastructure for finance. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like the story.
Yeah, me too. And something else to think of is like, if it didn't happen on Solana, it would have been on a different blockchain. Like that's like the way that it goes, right? Like there's, fantastic ways for people to gamble and people to make money quick. And
Yeah.
that's just like how it goes, right?
Totally. I'm a very strong believer in people having the right to do what they want with their own money. We're all adults. Like we know that we can lose money. We know that a lot of this stuff is like completely crazy and meaningless to some extent. But at the end of the day, like it's our money. We should be able to do whatever we want with it. And then if anything, I think sometimes I feel like regulations are too focused on preventing retail investors from participating in markets when it should really be much more focused on the supply side. Like, why don't you go after actual fraudsters and scammers and so on and put the efforts there instead of just like blanket preventing retail investors from participating in any form of investments? So that's something that that frustrates me a little bit occasionally when I see, especially the Gary Gensler era in the US. Now I think we're in a much better place actually in the US, but not every jurisdiction in the world has kind of gotten the memo. And I think there's still too much focus on preventing retail investors from participating in markets.
100%. It's like there's no personal responsibility for anybody out there that's using their own money. And it's like part of what crypto enables is like, hey, like you actually get to own your own money and you can almost spend it wherever you want, So it's kind of like the upside of crypto, but also the downside, is, you could take it too far. And there are definitely trades that you probably shouldn't take that are out there, right?
It's a very Darwinian process, right? It's messy, it's organic, but it creates incredible innovation, right? I really don't think you can have innovation without messiness and craziness. You have to buy the full package. You can't only have innovation and not have the craziness.
I 100% agree. I mean, if people weren't using it in crazy ways, then they're probably not using it at all. So it's a good thing. Sounds good. So we've gone off on the market for quite a while. I want to hear about Nansen. So you guys have been mainly in crypto analytics, right? And really kind of like making sense of the blockchain, which when you guys started in 2019, it probably wasn't as transaction heavy as it is now, where it's like, I feel like I'm just firing off transactions all day. So I imagine, you've like quite the progression from there, but why don't you tell everyone a little bit about Nansen?
Yeah. So basically we launched the product in April 2020. And this was right before DeFi summer started, for those who were around those days. And so the first thing that people used Nansen for was to basically find out, number one, which tokens they should potentially buy. And number two, which yield farms they should be participating in. So they would look at a specific, yield farm with, kimchi finance or sashimi finance.
All
a bunch of like
different types
food
of
coins.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, all the food coins. And so people would look at, who is actually providing liquidity into these pools, and they would use Nansen for that. And because we had and still have the best labeling of addresses across, all the major blockchains. So instead of just seeing a bunch of kind of addresses, you're seeing, this is 3 Arrows, this is, Alameda, or whatever it is. So people would often look at these yield farms or liquidity pools and include like, the largest farmer here is Alameda. That probably means they did some due diligence and like it's safe for us to jump in. In hindsight, maybe that was not the best heuristic actually, but for a while it worked. And so we were very focused on Ethereum then because we were a very small team. And actually the first time we added Solana was in beginning of 2022. So we were actually quite early adding Solana, but to make a long story short, this was in the first version of Nansen, and frankly, it was quite slow. It wasn't great for like a very high throughput chain like Solana. And so we ended up upgrading the whole product from Nansen 1 to Nansen 2 a little bit later. And again, to make a long story short, we couldn't migrate Solana over immediately. So there was a time when we didn't have Solana support in Nansen 2. So Nansen 2 is way better, way faster. Like it was just generally a better product, but it didn't have Solana support for a while. And incidentally, that's when Solana started getting really popular again, which was very frustrating because we were like, oh man, we used to support, now we don't. Yeah, exactly. And so people were like, when are you guys going to add Solana? And ultimately, we ended up adding it, and we did a much better job in the second iteration of adding it. And now I think a lot of people don't even know. Like I had lunch yesterday with someone from one of the top DeFi protocols in the Solana ecosystem, and they didn't really know that we have Solana support. And so it's pretty cool. You can go and you can look up literally any token that's on Solana. You get great analytics on it, like who owns it, who are the top holders, liquidity, trading, even some flow intelligence around smart money, exchange flows, all these different things. Distribution scores. We actually have a Nansen score that's coming out soon as well, where we actually score assets based on a variety of different sort of metrics and so on. And so you can look up any token, but you can also look up any address. And so it almost serves as like a block explorer for Solana and other chains, where you can literally just go Command K, paste in an address. Now you see all the transactions historically and like in real time that have been made by that address. You can also look up entities, right? So you can go in and you can, I don't know, look up Multicoin or any fund and see their holdings that we have attributed to addresses. And then you can set up smart alerts too, which now are very low latency. So you can set up, hey, give me a notification every time someone makes a more than $1 million Pengu transfer, for example. And you get like a Telegram notification, Slack, Discord notification, whatever you want. So yeah, we have actually really great support for Solana now. And most people use Nansen today to kind of discover assets and to make decisions on whether they should invest or not. But they also use Nansen to track their portfolio. So this is a free product that we have, a portfolio tracker, one of the few that actually does Solana as well as all the major EVM chains and Bitcoin and a bunch of other chains in one place. So you can get a full on-chain view of all your addresses in one place, and it's free.
Okay, so that's free, and people can check that out today.
Yeah, totally. They can go to app.nansen.ai or nansen.ai and create an account, which is free. They can set up their portfolio, which is free. And there's actually a lot of stuff you can do with the product without paying. Although, infamously, we are one of the products in the space that actually charge for a subscription fee, right? Which is a little bit unusual. Many products in crypto do the inverse. They like pay people to use their product. We do the opposite. We charge our customers, a bit more old school.
You generate revenue.
But yeah, revenues, right? There you go, the revenue method. So we've been doing that from the beginning. But actually, like over time, as we've grown, we've found ways to make more and more of the product free. And so one thing we did, which maybe you could get into, is we acquired a staking provider last year and have grown that incredibly quickly from $60 million staked with our validators to more than $2 billion staked now in a matter of 9 months. And we're actually, I think, one of the top 60 Sol validators, as an example.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and so that we can sort of offer more and more of our product for free because we have other ways to monetize the product now, right? And that's pretty cool, actually. I'm quite happy about that move. But it means
sorry to cut you off there, but one thing about the staking is you're one of the biggest validators on Hype too.
Yeah, we're actually we're the biggest besides the foundation.
I'm staking with you guys.
Amazing. Yeah, so we're the biggest Hype validator besides the foundation itself. We are, I think, top 60 or at least top 70 on Sol, to grow that even further, of course. We also run validators for Sui, for Tron, for Near, for a bunch of other L1s. And so I think people kind of like the Nansen brand. They trust us. They know that we're a serious company. We've been around, 6 years at this point. And so, I think that's why they choose to stick with us. We also give people Nansen points, which is a pretty cool loyalty program that we launched about 2.5 weeks ago. So there's a lot of exciting stuff going on at the moment. Actually, I'm pretty pumped about everything we're doing.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So it's almost like I feel like when I think of what you're talking about, I think of like little pieces of where I look up a new coin. Like I'll look it up on maybe like one site to look at like the market cap, and that's all I'm seeing. Or maybe the latest transactions is what I'll look at. Like I'm looking at like a small portion of what somebody that actually has Nansen has, right? Like they're looking at the whole scope of exactly what's
That's right.
going on.
Right.
Oh,
And
so
we have some like incredible new features too, where, like I said earlier, we're probably the best company in the world at labeling addresses. We have about 500 million addresses labeled with entity information, behavioral data, and that kind of stuff. But occasionally you come across an address that either doesn't have a super informative label or it doesn't have a label at all. And now we've added this functionality called deep research, where it's literally just a button. You can click deep research and a team of AI agents go out and try to figure out who's behind the address,
no way.
in the background.
So,
Yeah,
so wait a
it's
second,
pretty
wait a
amazing,
second.
actually.
I gotta
Yeah.
ask more things. So are you guys basically the Palantir for crypto?
Yeah, that's maybe that, but we're like the democratized Palantir. Like you
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
access Palantir, right, as a normal person, right?
Yeah.
But it is true. Like when we started the company back in 2019, one of the companies I did think about was Chainalysis, right, which is an infamous
yeah.
crypto company, right? And I kind of felt that they were doing something very cool from a data perspective, but it's totally inaccessible to normal people. And it seemed off to me that the government and the large exchanges are the only kind of entities that have access to this rich analytics. Like, why shouldn't the man in the arena, like the person who's trading the stuff, have access to great on-chain analytics? So it was kind of one of the inspirations actually to create the company, but we wanted to have a more kind of democratized approach. And to me, it's pretty cool now that, you can actually get tons of intelligence with our product without having to be like, I don't know, the IRS or, like the CIA or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think one of the first times I heard about Nansen, I think Kobe was on like an up only episode and he had somebody on and they were talking about like what coins they're traded. He's like, yeah, I already know every single trade that you made for the last year. I've got Nansen. Or something like that. I looked up all
Wow.
your addresses.
I should find
You're a
that
terrible
clip.
trader.
I should
That's
find
pretty
that
good.
clip, put it into some advertising. But yeah, I think he was one of.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. So I guess with that, like one of the questions that I had is like, who are your customers? Is it primarily like individuals? Or I guess it could be anyone that wants detailed analytics, right? Yeah. Are they?
Of crypto native funds too, and you could sort of come up with the biggest names in the space who use our product, and like the top market makers, many of whom are like very well labeled in our product.
Oh, I bet.
And I actually kind of think that firms like Wintermute probably
Yes.
benefited from like an
That's
advertising perspective.
that's exactly who my mind went to because it's like, oh, Wintermute's
Yeah.
selling, just get out. Yeah.
Well, I think they've kind of benefited in terms of like raising the brand profile. I mean, they're a great market making firm, but they've always been fine with their addresses being labeled. And I think
Yeah.
one of the reasons is they recognize that it's actually like pretty good advertising, like for the brand, like for the firm. And you can see how active they are on chain. Like you can see they're trading like tons of tokens, and they're kind of always there when there's action. So it's a different approach than many other market making firms. I respect them for it, and it's been cool to have a kind of front row seat at their growth from, I don't know, 2018, 2019, like since we were tracking these guys. Also a couple of market making firms that I haven't looked at in a while, but there were some that were actually not that famous, but did an insane amount of on-chain volume. The only way you would have known about them would be to actually look at what they're doing in Nansen. And so that's kind of funny. For a while, I actually worked at 0x, actually right before I started Nansen as an analytics consultant. I was helping them with understanding liquidity and setting up metrics for that and stuff like this. For those who don't know, 0x is one of the pioneer calls. Many of the market makers who were active on X are still active on chain, and I've been monitoring what they've been doing for the last 6-7 years.
So, oh man, that's probably insane the amount of the amount of analytics that you get to watch or the different places. Like, do you have any alpha for the average guy out there? Like, what are they doing? I mean, they've
Well,
got to be processing billions of dollars, but
maybe more like a product alpha on our side. One of the biggest hurdles in using Nansen historically has been that it's kind of complex or it's hard to navigate and like where should you go and all that stuff. So one thing we are doing now, which is super exciting, is that we're building an AI research agent that is equipped with literally all of our data. Imagine if you could talk to ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or whatever AI product you use, but it has access to real-time on-chain data across every chain that matters, and it has 500 million labeled addresses on top of it, right?
that is so, that's what AI needs. AI basically crushes everything, and then you ask it a general crypto question, and it will just be absolutely wrong.
100%. And so we are building this internally, and we're building it in two ways, actually. The first way is that we will create a model context protocol, an MCP, which is basically like an app or a tool for existing AI products. So you could literally use Claude and like access our MCP, and now it plugs that exact gap that you just described. Like Claude is very smart, right? But it's kind of completely blind on what's happening on chain in real time. But if you give it the Nansen MCP, now Claude knows how to use Nansen. Not just the dashboards, but it could write like arbitrary queries. It could look up different, API endpoint results and like combine them together and reason about them and so on and so forth. So that's the first part. And the second part is later this year, we're going to launch our own AI native product, which means you get a more let's call it more crypto native user experience where you can track your own portfolio in the same place as where you can discover assets, make decisions, and it has all that context about you as an investor. And so those are the two big bets we have in terms of AI features. And when you ask me about alpha, in a way, it's almost like if I give you alpha now, well, when people watch this episode, it might no longer be alpha, right? But if they just had access to the tools in real time, there's an infinite amount of alpha that you can discover if you just prompt these agents. And so to me, that is by far the most exciting things we've ever worked on actually in Nansen's history, because I think it's just going to completely change the user experience, which has been frankly kind of clunky and difficult to use for a lot of people. But with this stuff, it's like I get an arbitrary question from someone about on-chain. I can literally just take that question and give it to the agent, and within like 20 seconds, I have an answer, right? It's just a completely different way to think about what you can do with on-chain. And like I do sometimes think of Grok as a pretty good product analogy, because one of the main advantages of using Grok is that it has access to like real-time content. And that makes it like very useful for anything where you want that, right? Whether it's kind of give me the latest, talk about, Pengu in the last 3 hours on X, right? Grok is the only product that can do that. And so similarly, our AI product is going to be the only AI product that has access to real-time on-chain data with all of the enriched labels from Nansen's database. So it kind of
That's the dream.
creates this like
that is the dream.
Yeah, I'm so pumped about this from a user perspective, but like of course being able to build it. And then sorry to keep shilling this, but I'm very excited about it. The other thing here is that our team is incredibly good at AI, right? Like our product or our domain is Nansen.ai. My own like degree from university is in AI like 15 years ago, and we have a bunch of AI engineers who are fantastic at the company. And so we're doing very sophisticated like evals of the agent. So you can think of this as when a new LLM drops, you see like benchmarks on how good it is at coding, reasoning, graduate level mathematics, all this stuff. We're creating our own benchmarks internally at how good it is at helping you with investments on chain, right? So like how good is it at just synthesizing information about a token? How good is it at like summarizing what a wallet is? How good is it at giving you like actionable insights into which tokens you might want to be looking at? So we're creating evals where we actually run the agent with our own tools, and we benchmark it against, for example, a vanilla agent that doesn't have access. And then you can measure like, oh, it turns out when we give it the MCP, it's like 93%, at this task. Whereas if you don't have the MCP, it's like 23%, right? So it's just not. So that means like we have a pretty methodical approach here, and we're going to publish some research around that will accompany this product release. And hopefully it'll give people a really good sense of this isn't just some like AI slop that we're releasing. It's like actually researched, battle tested, agentic tools that we're going to be giving access to our users. So yeah, I've said this a few times, but it's literally never been a better time to be a Nansen user. And the roadmap we have for this year is the most exciting product roadmap we've ever had.
Yeah, oh, that sounds so exciting. It's kind of the dream of like what you're talking about. I think blockchain analytics, blockchain explorers in general, they're hard to read. They've always been very hard to read on Solana. Like they're way better now on Solana than they used to be, but they're still hard to read, still hard to understand transactions. So I mean, if you're able to build something where you can just ask it, everyday questions and get real powerful answers back, like that's what everybody needs, right? Like that's going to solve a lot of like the onboarding problems, a lot of the people that, make horrible mistakes that are fairly like elementary mistakes, right? Like where if you could just ask something, a few questions and get the full background on, every user that ever bought a token. I mean, this is awesome.
Yeah, like even for someone who knows how to navigate, block explorers and Nansen, our current product, it takes a long time to compile research, and it's actually really hard work. Think of like Zach, right, who is one of the most infamous sleuths. Yeah, and it takes a long time to do what he does, and he's like the best in the world at this stuff, right?
Yeah, oh man. I feel like the opportunity right now, like before that gets released to everybody, like to have that in your pocket early on is like, it's like a cheat code, right? It's like you're playing with, way ahead of everybody else. I hope you didn't look up my addresses before we came on. Not yet, not yet. Check it out after. Oh, that's so awesome. So yeah, that's going to be so huge. I'm going to have to sign up. So one question that I wanted to ask, and you kind of touched on it before. So you said with your first product, you were on Solana, but you were kind of like having issues. Was that just because Solana was faster, or was there like, I feel like the data in general on Solana wasn't like, it was really hard to get data off of Solana in the beginning, right? Like that was a big issue, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, really? No, I'm getting excited about your product too. I mean, it seems like if you're in Solana and care about metrics, this is like the place to go, or care about, actually analyzing all that. It's amazing. And one question that I gotta ask is this gonna help out with taxes? I feel like I just went through some taxes. I feel like this is gonna be, I'm bitching about it, but I was able to do it. But as more and more people onboard onto Solana, it's like, you can do 100 transactions in a day, not even know it. It's gonna come to a point where it's like too much for the average person to do. It's crazy with the current, even with probably the best tax software out there for crypto, you're maybe getting it 80% of the way there, running it through their program. For me, I had like something like 50,000 transactions last year. So to go through that other 20% myself, yeah, it's getting up there. The meme coins got hot for a little while. The worst part was having to submit this to a crypto accountant and then to our normal family accountant, and it had all the transactions on there and all the ridiculous names of these stupid coins. It's embarrassing. Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. It sounds like what you're building, what everybody needs or what I want. It sounds amazing. Oh, lost you there for a second. Sorry about that. Can you hear me? Let me check mine. All right. Yep, I think we're back. Sorry about that. I don't know if that was me or you. Shoot. Hello? Are we back? You're back. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. It's so awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited for that. Yeah. Cool. Well, I definitely need to check this out. Like, what? Oh man. I'm just thinking of like so many cool use cases for this. It's like I feel like we need a Nansen bot in our Telegram chat, for when we're scanning things. Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh, that would be so awesome. Man, that's cool. Well, what else do we have coming up? It sounds like you guys are building on the frontier of crypto, of AI right now. Like, it seems like more and more people are coming to crypto. Crypto's going mainstream. It's like you guys are perfectly set up for what's going to be happening. It seems like, oh, that sounds good. That sounds exciting. I love that permissionless wallet where, I mean, you're essentially like, hey, here are the power users. Here are the people that care about data that are using the blockchain a lot. It's a good way to kind of showcase them. Oh, that's awesome. It sounds good. Well, I need to check this out. I think if you're on Solana, it's worth checking this out. I mean, at least for the wallet tracker, that sounds like a win right there. But if you're into any of the analytics, this is like the place to go. I can't wait to check it out. Love what you're building. I really appreciate your time. Oh, that's so awesome. So any coin gets launched anywhere and you're able to just look it up right away. Oh, man. Man, I love that. I want to become a power user. All right, I'm going to check this out. Um, Oh, that's awesome. I definitely will. I think that if you're a listener, you made it to the end of this podcast, you should definitely be checking this out. Tell them where to reach it. Is it Nansen.ai for everything? Yeah, well, I think they should check it out. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Appreciate what you're building. And yeah, when you're ready to talk about what's coming next, you're always welcome back on. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Alex.